Hello everyone and welcome to my Price Watch series for March 2026. We've been watching GPU and now memory and SSD prices for about a year now. In fact, it was a year ago that I started this series because NVIDIA launched all the RTX 50 series graphics cards and we were like, I'm not sure if they're being genuine about the MSRPs that they're going to be selling those for. But a quick recap of the past year, prices were indeed higher than MSRP for the RTX 50 series, as well as AMD's RX 9000 series graphics cards as they rolled out from spring and into summer, but prices actually settled down, and late summer and beginning of fall was actually a fantastic time to build a new PC in 2025. But around October to November, the current PC hardware crisis kicked into gear with the memory shortage, which is mostly impacting memory prices, as well as NAND and SSD prices, as well as a knock-on effect to graphics cards, which require VRAM as well. There's been a lot of negativity, a lot of doom and gloom around the PC hardware landscape, and I think it is all pretty justified, but we're going to try to cut through all that today and focus on real-world, actual pricing as listed by PCPartPicker. Have things gotten better or worse in the past month? It's a bit of a mixed bag.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's View 600 TG full tower chassis, featuring 4 tempered glass panels that provide an unobstructed view of your PC and support for massive 420mm radiators for AIO or custom cooling. Available in 5 distinct and unique colorways, including Future Dusk, the View 600 TG also supports hidden connector and eATX motherboards and includes an anti-sag GPU bracket and rotatable PCIe slots, as well as easily removable ventilation panels and plenty of room for cable management and added storage. There's an optional 6-inch LCD add-on too. For more on the View 600 TG from Thermaltake, click the sponsor link in the video description. All right, we're going to start with GPUs today, but there are timestamps if you want to jump ahead to memory and SSDs. I'm gathering all this data from PCPartPicker. So we're looking at new retail listings and e-tail listings from major retailers in the United States like Newegg, Amazon, B&H, and quite a few more. For any given GPU, like the 5070 Ti, I am noting the least expensive retail price, and I am vetting and verifying that it's being sold by an actual retailer or at least by a reputable third-party marketplace seller. But that's where we will get the low price, and then I'm averaging the least expensive 10 GPUs from this list to get our average price. The only last thing to note is that if you hear any random noises happening during this video, it's because they're redoing the roof across the street. But here's the GPU Price Watch spreadsheet. This is for February. Do note that I kicked out the May results in order to keep things legible as we jump over to March. And if you're comparing these two, one to the other, look at the red over here. You'll note that the AMD GPUs were suffering a bit last month, whereas most of the lower end NVIDIA graphics cards were also seeing price increases. And by and large, things have stagnated or gotten worse on the NVIDIA side. And we even have like a little bit of a standout with the 7900 XT if you need a graphics card with a higher VRAM allocation. Given that the 16 gig cards are going for $550, $960, and $1,300-ish on the NVIDIA side, a 20 gig graphics card for $680 wasn't like a fantastic deal if you go back to like September, October, November. And it's certainly not as good as its lowest price, which was $580 back in October 2025. Do note that I have gone and bolded like the lowest of all-time prices throughout this list. But by and large, if you look at the price versus MSRP column over here, every single GPU except one, or I guess possibly two if you look at the MSRP price of the 5060 Ti, are selling for well over their MSRPs, and that kind of sucks. But just to quickly give you an idea of this entire list, the lowest price area right here is sort of our history, so we can look back at what the best prices were, and then lastly the price versus MSRP as a percentage. Next I'm going to look at the actual lowest price listings for a lot of the GPUs that I have listed, but if you are actually in the market for a new graphics card, I highly recommend checking the used market right now. Buying any of these at retail right now is just not going to get you a very good deal, and it's also going to like send the message to the manufacturers and the retailers that people are willing to pay these exorbitant prices, and if people are not willing to pay those exorbitant prices, then the prices, at least in theory, according to basic economics, should come down. But perhaps all the AI data center buildouts happening across the world might have something to say about that. Still though, here are the listings. I skipped the 5050 because it's depressing. The RTX 5060 8 gig is slightly less depressing, and even here for the cheapest model, it's actually selling for $370, and you have to apply a promo code. Promo codes I'm okay with because they're instant discounts and you don't have to like send in a mail-in rebate or anything like that. But if you compare the 5060 to the 5060 Ti, also 8 gigs, so you're still not getting like maximum VRAM or anything like that, but it's $380 for the cheapest one here. The Newegg listing also says there's a free MSI all-in-one liquid cooler that comes along with this, and also there's a $10 mail-in rebate card that brings the price down to $370, I suppose. And look at that. It's actually 240 millimeter MSI MAG core liquid. That looks like Newegg's throwing in along with that. That's actually like reasonable value for an add-on item there. Those sell for 85 bucks apparently. But I don't want to get too hung up. These are all linked in the video description if you want to jump over there and see if that is still available and in stock. Next we have the 5060 Ti 16 gig. This is the one that we've recommended people to claw their way up to if they could, because getting 16 gigs of VRAM is a lot more than 8 gigs in a lot of games, especially at higher resolution, and newer titles do go beyond 8 gigs of usage. That said, the cheapest 5060 Ti 16 gig, somewhat tellingly because like Nvidia was supposed to be cutting back on the higher VRAM allocation models, and Nvidia was like, no, we're still shipping everything, but they didn't say exactly how many, but the prices going up on the 16 gig models is pretty evident. And also, look at the delivery date ranges for some of these, depending on where they're being shipped from and sold by and to. This isn't going to arrive until the end of March or like mid to late April. That is pretty dumb. I would not recommend that. But speaking of Nvidia saying that the 16 gig cards are still shipping, but looking at the actual numbers, making me think, Nvidia, I don't think you were being completely forthright. Look at the price increases for the 16 gig models. We're at about 130% for the 5060 Ti 16 gig, the 5070 Ti 16 gig, and the 5080 16 gig as well, although the 5080 did come down a little bit this month. But the 5090 aside, which is ridiculously priced by and large for the longest time, but with the 5090 aside, compare those price percentages versus MSRP to like the 12 and 8 gig cards, and they're not nearly as bad, and that tells me that availability for the higher VRAM cards is definitely limited compared to the other options. Also 550 bucks, that's what a 5070 should cost, Nvidia. But there is one other $550 listing that's available at Best Buy if you don't want to wait till mid to late March or April for the one coming from Amazon. Okay, the next step up is the RTX 5070, should be $550. Cheapest one is $650. Ooh, you get Resident Evil Requiem with purchase. Limited offer. Everyone jump on that. And then as we move on up the stack, things get more disappointing. The cheapest 5070 Ti 16 gig right now is $950. Still comes with Resident Evil Requiem. And that one is also just very disappointing because the 5070 Ti was like kind of the most viable higher end NVIDIA graphics card if it was selling for its MSRP or cheaper. The cheapest we ever saw, the 5070 Ti 16 gig, by the way, was $730. And again, if we look at the PCPartPicker listing of all the 5070 Ti 16 gigs, we can see that there are some that should be available for 800-ish to 900-ish, but the ones that are actually available are all close to 1,000 or more. Now, the one spot of green in the NVIDIA listings was the price coming down for the 5080 16 gig, but I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. 5080 16 gig should be a $1,000 card. The cheapest we saw it was $11 less than that. So I don't have any good explanation for why the 5080 is suddenly dropping a little bit, but it is still overpriced and it's still $1,250 at the cheapest. Lastly, the 5090, cheapest was $3,600 last month. That's gone up by $100 to $3,700, but I guess at least they're not sold out completely. Here is that 7900 XT listing. It's an XFX model, and again, especially if you're doing something that requires a lot of VRAM, if you're dabbling in AI or something like that, the 20 gig 7900 XT for $680 is definitely the most bang for your buck in terms of VRAM allocation, so just wanted to highlight that one. Here's the least expensive RX 9060 XT 8 gig, $345, being sold directly by iBuyPower, I guess. That's still almost $100 over the lowest price 9060 8 gig, which was $250. The 9060 XT 16 gig is $430, so I guess if you're on more of a budget and you need 16 gigs at least of VRAM, this is a better option over the 5060 Ti 16 gig. Oh, and look, you get a free GPU holder with selected purchase. Wow, that's what an add-on that is, Newegg. And then we have the 9070s, the RX 9070 and 9070 XT, supposed to be the chosen ones that would like bring balance to the GPU marketplace. They have not. They're still selling for well over the MSRP. $630 is the cheapest non-XT, and that bumps up to over $700 if you want the XT version. This one, I kind of hesitate to say this is a $710 listing because it's a $60 promotional gift card that you get with this purchase. So that's kind of akin to a mail-in rebate. I still kept this at $710 as the cheapest option, but the next cheapest that doesn't require a mail-in rebate is $730, although again, double check the ship times if you're actually making a purchase on one of these. All right, switching over to the RAM and SSD now, price watch section, and this is the February spreadsheet, and I've made quite a few updates for March, as you can hopefully tell, because I have now added in a little bit more of a formal layout the SSD comparison down here as well. Now, because I've only been gathering the SSD pricing for the past month or two, I had to dig back into my Price Watch archives to pull up some of this information, like the pre-SSD shortage listings of $55 for 1 terabyte, $90 for a 2 terabyte, and $190 for a 4 terabyte were all pulled from builds or build fix episodes where I could verify that yes, there was a 4 terabyte NVMe SSD for $190. And then in particular, the January comparisons that I have here are a little bit approximate because I was using the PCPartPicker history to go back to January-ish pricing, and I was aiming for about January 10th. And that varies a lot from device to device as far as how many sellers had it listed and that sort of thing. But that is why I put approximate for the January listings. But let's focus on memory first. I have 3 types of memory configurations I'm monitoring. For newer DDR5 platforms, we have a 32 gig kit, and I'm looking at the quote-unquote good memory kit that is DDR5 6000 or faster with a good CAS latency as well, less than or equal to 32. Then I'm also looking at a bad memory kit, or basically like if I don't care about speeds or timings, all I care about is capacity. I'm kind of throwing those ratings out the window in order to find, is there anything cheaper if all you want is 32 gigabytes, but maybe you have an X3D CPU or something like that, where the memory speed isn't going to impact your gaming performance quite as much. You can save a few dollars, but it's not a lot. We're doing the same thing for a 64 gig. We have sort of the good kit and the bad kit, and then looking at DDR4 pricing, also with the 32 gig kit, going with DDR4 3000 or better, CAS latency 16 or less, and then removing that requirement for the less expensive kit. Again, with my color coding over here, at a glance you can see that most of the prices for most of these categories went up, with one small exception in our 64 gig memory kit. If any of you guys are doing a workstation build or something that needs more memory, this is the best deal in recent memory. If you're comparing the past 2 or 3 months, still not a great deal overall when you compare the fact that you could get 64 gig kits for around $200 maybe 5-6 months ago, but the kit in question has a $150 off coupon, and that is why it is the lowest price for both the good memory and the not good 64 gig DDR5 memory. So might as well jump straight to that one. Here it is. It's a listing on Newegg. This is a kit that's currently listed for $750, but there's a $150 off promo code right there. It's on the product page. Let me refresh, and it's still there. But jumping back to 32 gigs, if you want a faster 32 gig kit, there's a Crucial Pro DDR5 kit. It's actually DDR5 6400 speed, has XMP and Expo presets, and it's $368. Is it a good deal? No. Is it the cheapest DDR5 memory that meets those criteria? Yes, for now. Interestingly, when I kicked out the speed requirements and everything, it actually pulled up this Crucial 32 gig DDR5 6400 kit. This one has pretty terrible timings, CL52 actually, and you might also note that it is a CU DIMM kit. So this might be viable if you're rocking one of the newer Intel platforms like the Core Ultra series, which, are there any of you guys doing that? I have no idea. But do note that you don't want to buy CU DIMMs if you're building an AM5 system. The newer AM5 9000 series CPUs will boot with the CU DIMM kit, but they run at the base level JEDEC DDR5 spec, so you'll need to manually tune them to try to get the speed up. So if you're not interested in that, I would recommend just paying $5 or $10 more for this kit instead. It is not as fast in terms of the rated speed, but it's slightly better in terms of latency, and it's $336. From there, you'll need to spend $30, $40 more to claw your way up to this Pro kit. All right, we already talked about the 64 gig kit. This one takes the place of both the good and the bad. Then finally we have DDR4. Silicon Power has had some, again, not good deals, but relatively the most reasonable deals for DDR4 memory, but they usually sell it directly on their website by way of these promo codes. And they are instant promo codes that you can apply at checkout, but they also fluctuate a lot. And when I pulled this up when I was gathering information for this video, it brought the price down to $220, and it does not do that anymore. So instead I will quickly note the slow DDR4 kit. Lowest price here was $214. That's for this very bare bones Crucial kit, but do note that this is also ECC registered server memory. But anyway, here's my search for the DDR4 memory, just looking for a 2x16 gig kit. There were a bunch at $220 yesterday. There's still a couple, the Team Group T-Force Delta and Mushkin Redline, but all those Silicon Power kits that were down at $220 have all jumped back up. So, you know, deals come and deals go. It can happen pretty quickly. So here is your replacement DDR4 memory kit, and this one's actually pretty solid because it's DDR4 3200. It is CAS latency 16. I think this would also sort of meet the good and bad memory standards with this promo code, bringing it down to $220. And then lastly, we have the SSDs. I already kind of went over my SSD charts here a little bit, but I'm listing both the price per gigabyte as well as the actual price you'd pay for a 1 terabyte, a 2 terabyte, or a 4 terabyte drive right now. Cheapest 1 terabyte option was $118. The cheapest 2 terabyte option is at the very least staying under $200 for now. And this is actually a Gen 4 drive that has read and write speeds that are Gen 4 speeds, so that's not bad. It's even a Crucial drive, and since Micron has canceled their Crucial consumer line, you know, this will be a collector's item one day. Lastly, if you want a 4 terabyte drive, the Silicon Power UD90 4 terabyte is also the most compelling offer. You need to do a little bit of math here because it's $456 minus 78 with this promo code. Okay, I had to do a little bit of math to verify, but with this promo code, this is the best price 4 terabyte NVMe SSD out there too. But that is all the time I have for this video, guys. Just taking a rather bleak and a little bit depressing look at the current prices for the most expensive PC hardware that has all gone up in price just recently: GPUs, the memory, and the SSDs. By and large, the other types of PC hardware out there, like your cases, your power supply, motherboards, CPUs, those prices are still pretty stable and still pretty comparable to what they were last year before this shortage happened. So it's really just these three components that are seriously driving up the prices of building a new computer. So before you go and buy new parts to build a new system yourself, I highly recommend checking the used market to see what you can find there. Looking at pre-built, because some of the pre-built system integrators still have memory on hand that they purchased at lower prices, which allows them to give better deals for some of the pre-built systems. Or just waiting. I can't promise prices are going to get any better than they are if you wait a month or two, but hopefully they can't get too much worse than they are right now. Famous last words and all. But that is all the time I have for this one, you guys. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button. Links to some of the quote-unquote best deals down in the description below. There's also a link to my store down there, paulshardware.net, where you can buy shirts, mugs, and pint glasses to help support my channel and get yourself some high-quality merch. Thank you guys once again for watching. We'll see you all in the next one.